about Borderlands and its box office. It's not doing too good, John. Why it couldn't even break $10 million now. There is a couple of things before we get into this. I think we mentioned, we were talking about this on Sin's channel, I think, a couple of weeks ago, this trailer, and I get good vibes from the trailer. I thought it was a very good trailer and a good promotion of the film, but by all accounts, John, you are probably more versed in obviously the video game itself. I think
played the first one.
Might have let me borrow the first one, and I thought it was okay. I thought it was a good game.
I love sort of a dystopian, apocalyptic sort of environments, and that was it. Absolute Mad Max.
Some of the issues that obviously some of the Borderlands video game fans are having, some of the characters were missing from the film, and that caused some initial disappointment. But also, some of the dynamics between the characters were altered as well, which it's not a good thing to do if you're relying on that fan base from the video games going into the film, because if you're not a fan of the video games, you're not really going to know too much about what the film's about, other than the promotional trailer. But it's not doing too good, is it?
Oh, Stephen, I mean, I've spoken about this in the past on this channel. Obviously, the trials and tribulations are, I don't know, what would be the word I'd use? Adapting, that's the word. Clearly not been doing live shows a long time now, and I'm starting to forget the lingo of movies. Adapting and slew. Slew's another one. I love the word slew. And the sort of press, movie press, was another word I was going to use, but I'm not going to. So I was thinking of Grace Randolph, and it was giving me nightmares. What I think about Grace, and a fucking weird robotic The Irishman voice. But yeah, adapting, it's always a really tricky, because you've got established stories and characters and a whole fan base that are connected and invested in the video game side of things, but obviously outside of, I don't know, what are they called again? That, I mean, again, I don't play on PlayStation anymore. But yeah, Naughty Dog, was it, that done The Last of Us and great video games with brilliant immersive stories. There's a couple of Japanese ones as well. Them aside, in the main, you think of video games, the story is usually okay, but it's more about the mechanics and playing the game itself. And if the story's there, then brilliant. You can maybe count in two hands the amount of really compelling stories that are right up there with the best movies that have been released. There may be more, I may be talking shit, I'd have to go and think about that. Halo's also one that's got a decent story in the main. The Last of Us is a couple, but in the main, you don't really think of outstanding fucking Oscar-worthy adapting stories coming from video games. You think of the ones that have been adapted in recent times. Tomb Raider, that's a bit of fucking female, I don't know, archaeologist. I mean, it's basically Indiana Jones, isn't it, at that point? But not as good, because you've not got Harrison Ford. You think of that fucking one you played in the 80s with Dwayne Johnson.
Rampage.
It's a fucking side-scrolling fighting game. You're making a video, you're making a movie out of that, really? Assassin's Creed get an interesting story, but again, it's really about going back and exploring these historic time periods and brilliant immersive gameplay. You're jumping about and grappling onto things, and you're fighting multiple people. Maybe the arcade games, but again, you've got great, compelling Batman stories in animated and in live action form. So it's always really tricky getting the balance of video game stories making the jump to film, because you'll piss people off if you start changing it too much for a new audience and freshening it up, and that's almost required. You don't want to retell the same story again, because everyone knows it beat by beat. You can see you do that with a book as well, but how many people read the fucking books compared to play video games? Probably a small number, which is tragic for the human race. But like the Time Machine, the Morlocks, those weird future people, well, we have books, you touch it, it goes to dust. That's modern humanity, really. We're not really reading much now, and it's tragic. We're sort of artistic works from film and TV and TikTok now and YouTube Shorts. So it's really tricky, man. You need to digress. Really tricky. You need to get the balance right when you're adapting video games. You don't want to piss off everyone, make a really shit story that pisses all over the legacy of the video games. Likewise, you don't want to just rehash the entire story from the video games, because people who play the video games will say it wasn't good anyway, because it was already done the video game and they preferred that. So it's tricky, man. I don't know. I've not seen this movie. I've seen the trailers. It looked as though it was on a visual level and on a energy and a vibe level pretty reminiscent of the games. I'm not that well versed in Borderlands that I know every single character. I don't know
All the
about
chemistry.
all the chemistry. I don't know about who's missing and whatnot. I like the vibes from
But
the
that
trailer.
sounds like the basics that you have to get right, John, does it not?
Yeah,
know,
you do. You can't have
need
to
to
get the characters in there, yeah.
You know, you watch franchises throughout your life, whether that be Star Wars or if it would be Guardians, and you get the gist of the chemistry between each character, and they've all got different chemistry and dynamics, you know, and if you take that away, it's like having Star Wars and, Carrie Fisher, Harrison Ford and Mark Hamill and not having that dynamic in there. It's something not right about it, that you're familiar with. And especially with a video game as well. If you are an avid Borderlands gamer and you know the characters inside out, and then you come into this film, you're going to be very disappointed by all accounts.
Yeah. It's like making a Halo game and not having Master Chief or Cortana. Yeah. It's weird.
Yeah.
You need to get the basics right. But again, I feel for the screenwriters, the director, whoever's involved, the writers. I always feel that screenwriters is weird. But I don't want to say scriptwriters either, because I know that's not right. But I feel for them because they're probably trying to adapt a story in this world and have the main players, but do something fresh so they can try and appease both sides of things, make a multi-demographic film. And it's obviously not worked because they've made no one happy. And you look at the obviously the box office, and it's horrific, man. It's horrific. Worldwide, just over $9 million. That is horrendous. 250,000.
It came out 3 days ago, didn't it?
But that's terrible, Stephen. That's really, really poor. We're talking about the United States of America here. $8.8 million. It's the biggest film-going audience on earth, and you can only muster $8.8 million after 3 days. That is
John, I know
horrific.
You have got obviously the other theory, not just obviously the chemistry and missing characters, but obviously the time and the placing of this film's release.
You've got Deadpool and Wolverine out, and it's just crossed over $1 billion, and it's going strong. 3 weeks, just under 3 weeks, $1 billion. It's a terrible time to release a film. Anyone with a brain would have known this is Ryan Reynolds, it's Hugh Jackman. Regardless of how good or bad Marvel have been doing in recent times, it's Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds, and it's Wade Wilson. It's going to have legs, man.
Yeah.
If they just make it competent, it's going to have legs. And to be fair, it's more than competent. It's a really fun film. So it's going to have legs. Why would you release a film within 2 weeks of Deadpool and Wolverine? Just stay out of it.
Yeah.
Stay away from it, man. Certainly that kind of film, Borderlands, it's occupying the same genre, the same space. It's kind of action, adventure kind of film. Also, it's not Marvel, but it's still action, adventure kind of film. You're losing. Forget about it, man.
Yeah.
There's a reason companies move their releases away from films like Deadpool and Wolverine. You've literally got one Marvel movie in the calendar year, and you've put your fucking film right in the middle of its run.
Do you think perhaps maybe, and I'm not saying this for a minute, this is right or anything like that, John, it's totally wrong, but do you think perhaps maybe the studio have thought, it's got Kate Blanchett in it, so what can go wrong? Do you think they've relied too heavily on the cast in this, and obviously the actual brand of Borderlands that they've just thought? And
well, I mean, Steve, that's another thing. I mean, I loved the first Borderlands game. I did. It was brilliant. I don't know if it's based off a comic book, so there's another sort of source material out there, but it doesn't jump out as being the video game franchise of like the last 20 years. There's other ones that are bigger and better. I mean, you had Tom Holland, you had... Who else was in that fucking film? Why am I blanking on him? Mark Wahlberg, the Wahlberger himself. No, not Far Cry. God, what's it called? Again, it's a PS, it's a PlayStation one, and I don't play PlayStation.
I've not played PlayStation in years.
But that franchise came out. Unforgiven? No, it's not Unforgiven. That's a fucking...
I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about.
I'll look it up.
That's a far bigger game franchise than Borderlands, and it didn't do well. So this is not something unique to Borderlands. Video games have been getting adapted for a long, long time. Brilliant video games with established stories and great, interesting characters and an audience waiting to be tapped into. And it's not worked. Halo, I mentioned Halo.
Uncharted.
Uncharted. And obviously Halo, it's got a TV show. And it's not really got to the levels of the video game franchise. So this is not something unique to Borderlands. It's notoriously difficult to adapt video games to other mediums and do it well. That's why when it does happen, you take note. You think of Sonic. No one expected a Sonic film to be good, and it was very fucking good.
Yeah.
But it's because it positioned itself in that sort of live action animated CG hybrid genre where we've seen success before with Paddington. It's like Peter Rabbit to an extent, even though it had the enormously irritating James Corden in there. What else? Detective Pokemon Pokemon Detective Pikachu. I always mix that up.
The Winnie the Pooh one as well.
Winnie the Pooh one, yeah. When you kind of pick that genre, that subgenre of a genre, if you like, and you get the casting right, the voice acting, and to be fair, James Marsden was fucking brilliant. And
he was, he really
Sonic,
was.
and you've got Jim Carrey in there. They got that bang on. That was one you didn't expect to work, and it did work. So it's usually that way with video game adaptations. It's the ones you don't think are going to do well, do well. I'm just going to briefly bring this up, Steve, and read a couple of these because I'm really intrigued to see. I've not read anything. 8% in Rotten Tomatoes, 50% but with the audience is still not great. Literally 8% of the reviewers have rated it fresh. I think that's the way that works. 92% have rated it rotten. That's horrific. The audience, only half the audience kind of like the film and the other half don't. That's not good, man. You can see here, I try to pick the bigger ones, but I'm going to pick some audience members as well. The movie was carried by Kate Blanchett. I'm not saying Blanchet. And Kevin Hart. The effects and colour palette was nice. Everything else was just average at best. Nothing that works about the games has been adapted intact in this ugly, boring, truly inept piece of filmmaking. Video game movie adaptations have spewed out some serious clunkers over the years and a half. Assassin's Creed, Michael Fassbender.
Yeah.
But even by the lamentable standards of a genre, Eli Roth, and it's Eli Roth as well, reshoot plagued Borderlands is abysmal. So there you go. It's not getting love from the critics. It's not getting love from the regular audience. It's not getting love in the box office. It's clearly a flippity-floppity flop
just
of
read
a
one
movie.
of the comments there, John, about character development or lack of it. I always find that in these video game adaptations that they rely on the sort of the video game arc that, you know, they're relying on the gamers. They'll know the characters well enough to not bother about the development or any investment in them. And it seems to be the thing over and over again. And you mentioned Tomb Raider, John. I liked the games when they first came out in the PlayStation back in the late 90s. But I just felt the adaptation of the film just was a bit of a disconnect because it didn't feel like the same character. Lara Croft, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Just didn't feel the same, and that's
I
nothing
didn't
to
mind
do with
Angelina Jolie.
It's nothing to do with it's nothing to do with Angelina Jolie, who's a fantastic actor, but
they weren't the worst.
No.
And even the Alicia Vikander one, it wasn't as good as them, but it wasn't horrifically bad. That's a little bit easier to do if you get it right because it's exciting, it's action adventure. It usually transitions better.
At that point, there probably wasn't as many, but now, as we've been talking about over the last 15 minutes or so, you know, the amount of video game adaptations that have been over the last 10 years, there's that many now that it's not like it was when Tomb Raider came out, when it was probably one of the very few ones that came out, and we all know who Lara Croft was. But you get into these films and I'm like, I don't know who these characters are, and they're not really spending a lot of time or investing a lot of time in these characters, so I can't really connect with them, so I don't really care for them.
You think Tomb Raider and what came before in terms of video game movies? I'm trying to think off the top of my head here, and the only one I can think of is Mortal Kombat in the mid-90s.
Yeah, Street Fighter,
Street Fighter as well, yeah. Mortal Kombat wasn't great.
No.
I've still not seen that remake, and that looked
Fighter,
fucking really good, by the way. I need to watch that. Seen the first 10 minutes, and I actually enjoyed that. They released that online.
And there was a Super Mario Brothers one with...
Super horrendous. 92 or something, 91.
Yeah, Bob Hoskins,
Really poor.
Yeah.
So there's not... Prior to the Tomb Raider franchise, there wasn't a lot of video game sort of movies doing well, getting adapted successfully, and it's been a problem for the last 20, 30 years after sort of Mortal Kombat and then post Tomb Raider, Angelina Jolie.
It's definitely a medium issue because we've seen films adapting well into video games.
Well, I mean,
like
The Last
the
of Us
Guardians
seems
the
to be
Galaxy.
doing well, Stephen. HBO, it's doing well. But that's HBO. They always get it right. They won't touch something unless there's real good foundation material there to mine out of. I think it's a problem because video games, by their very creation, they've got a story and it can be compelling, but it's for video games. And it's user interactive. You can, the best ones that I've played, you can kind of chart the story and influence it and change the ending. I
you
think
are
of
the character
you
as well.
think of like Knights of the Old Republic and stuff like that.
Alan Wake.
Alan Wake, you can change things and it's interactive. the best movies get adapted from novels where you've got real detail.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of source material
Yep.
to mine out of, and for the actors to go and appreciate and get the nuance of the character. Actors ain't got time to sit and play video games, man. They just haven't. They're fucking busy people.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got time, and even then, I've not got time to play games like I used to. I used to sit and just dedicate hours playing games like Fallout. I ain't got that time now, man. I just ain't
Football
got
Manager.
it.
Yeah.
Football Manager. I used to spend fucking hours. I ain't got it.
Yeah.
Actors ain't got time to sit down and play a game. So what are they being gave to walk off of? I think Alan Rickman.
You talk about time. I remember when you used to get, like, if whether it was be a FIFA game, a Pro Evolution, or it would be Football Manager, you'd actually get and customise everything to the exact specifications.
Yeah, it was Pro Evolution, yeah.
And as you said, you just don't have the time to do
Not
that.
got time for that.
Yeah.
No.
That nonsense.
Lucky if I've got time to play like 6 games a Dead by Daylight.
But we're
And
going to move on, John, because I know we're trying to get in a few trailer reactions
Yeah.
before we finish recording tonight. But if anyone's got anything to say on Borderlands and how it's performing in the box office or not performing, let us know in the comment section. We'd be very interested to know your thoughts on the film. Have you seen the film? Are you intending to see the film? Are you being put off with those box office numbers that you're not going to bother seeing the film now? Who knows? But let us know anyway. We're very interested to read your thoughts. We're going to move on to